Last week we had some wonderful creativity around this understanding of metaphor, and the metaphor that Jesus used as the Good Shepherd. Now again, this day we hear about metaphor. Jesus saying that He is the vine and we are the branches. But before we move into that, I want to share some of those thoughts in case some of you haven't had a chance to read the newsletter that others had an opportunity to put out there this past week. You see, some thought of God as Google. That we go to Google with our questions and sometimes not even knowing exactly what we're asking, but looking for the answers, for an understanding that pushes us beyond to engage, to think, and to keep them seeking. Some thought of God as a warm blanket in which to wrap ourselves and find comfort. Still others thought of God as grandmother, with the fresh peonies, the scent lingering in the air, the fresh carrots from the garden, the homemade baked goods. Many thought of Jesus as best friend, one who draws near, and I love the phrase, of the one who hangs with us, who is there through the good and the bad, sharing in our tears, laughing and smiling and sharing in our joys. We came to our understandings of metaphor in a wide variety of ways and many different images. And yet we continue to explore, to think, to engage theologically. It is that same theological reflection that we are invited into today as we hear of Jesus putting forward this metaphor of being the vine, and of God as the vine tender, the one who helps to care for this precious and incredible vine. Now, many of you know that I spent time on my internship in Oakland, California. And as I've shared with some of you, one of my favorite things over the course of that year was to take that trek up across the bridge and into some counties that you may have heard of before. Napa, Sonoma, Mendoza. There I would explore, so to speak, these wonderful, wonderful places, vineyards. And one of my favorite experiences was being invited into a tour and having a master vinter walk us through and showing us the vines and the way that they tenderly prune, the way that they fertilize the ground around it and would heap up straw in the fallow season and also utilize the leaves that were cut off to continue to nurture the ground, to show us how they worked with the grapes, the branches, hanging them on the wires. There was a great tenderness and passion about this work. And as I went from vineyard to vineyard and had a chance to both sample the goods as well as hear the stories, you could hear the incredible love and passion that people had for this work. As I come to this story and this metaphor of God, I can't help but imagine the passion that is there for God's people. God saying that I am there caring for you richly and deeply, that I am nurturing you with this incredibly fertile ground that I continue to add to. That I pick apart those leaves, those branches that aren't so good and are doing some harm. That I continue to care for all that is good and to make sure that you are growing as strong and healthy and vitally as you possibly can. And producing rich, good, and savory fruits. I think the challenges that we end up facing with this passage, first off, are when we get towards the end and hearing about the branches being pulled off and thrown into the fire. We often tend to think that maybe that's not just God's job. Maybe we should be doing that. That's where I think we have to step back. We are not God. We don't see the grand plan. We don't have responsibility for deciding who's in and who's out and who's cut off and who's not. richer and deeper of appreciation of a God who continues to engage and enfold and welcome all in, working hard to make sure that none is cut off or left behind. So the first thing with this is we need to get past our sense that we are the ones to do the pruning, and rather let God take on that responsibility, that care, and allow us to look at how richly and deeply connected are we to this Jesus that we claim and proclaim as being the vine of which we are branches. You know that some of you know that I enjoy reading and checking out bumper stickers. And I'm always amazed with some of the bumper stickers that we come across. And whether it's Jesus is coming, look busy, or whether it is that one that says, I love your Jesus, it's your followers that I'm scared of. And as we come to this text, I think of how easy it is to be scared of people who say to be the followers, but are missing out on this rich and deep connection to the vine. This one that continues to nurture and sustain us, that draws us in. How closely do we listen to this reading from 1 John about abiding, of resting fully in the holy and in the Christ? How fully do we hear ourselves engaged in that commitment, and then living from that to a place where we show forth our love, where we extend ourselves in deep care for our brothers and sisters? Now that paragraph lead into it about caring for our brothers and sisters who are Christian. I'm not so sure about that at all. I think this is about caring for those who are Christian and Muslim and Jewish and Hindu, those who are seeking and questioning and wondering and trying to figure out why in the heck we're on this earth and what we're to be about. I think that we are all invited into that, and then we show each other that deep kindness, that understanding of the Christ in me that reaches out and breathes the Christ in you, in others. That is what we are called into in this 1 John. And you see, if we neglect that piece, we're in trouble. Then we turn to fear and we turn to hatred, and we allow ourselves to get paranoid in this world. We begin to think, what's around the corner? Who's going to get us? Who has ulterior motives? Rather than thinking of how we are grounded in God's love, and that the person who is there in front of us is a pilgrim, a sojourner who walks with us, with whom we are deeply and intricately connected. And it is there that I move us back to the first reading for today. For you see, I love this passage about Philip, a disciple, someone who is working very diligently to follow this Jesus, this Christ. This one who has died, whose community now flourishes, who's trying to make sense of what's next. And he is picked up and taken to the wilderness road. Oh, that wilderness road. The place where the pilgrims have wandered, some for 40 years, some for a lifetime. That place where we're not sure exactly what is going to happen. But precisely there on this wilderness road, Philip encounters this eunuch. This one who is high up in the Ethiopian court, the keeper of the queen's treasury. Now, in all likelihood, he was Jewish. We are told that he went to Jerusalem to pray, to worship. And we often forget that there was a large Jewish community in Ethiopia and northern Africa. And that he was doing his diligent work about going to the homeland, going to the home temple, and living out his witness.